We hope you enjoyed today's happy hour episode, which is hosted and distributed by Anchor to just about every podcast platform. We love Anchor because it gives you all the tools to create and distribute podcasts. Every feature in Anchor is designed to be so straightforward that anyone, even people with zero podcasting experience, can pick it up and start using it right away. It's so easy and free, yes, free, so start your own podcast today. Welcome to the Three Tomatoes Happy Hour, and we do love happy hour and the clinking of glasses and cheers to all you fabulous women who are fully living your lives at every age and every stage. And here's the best news. Every hour is happy hour. So whether you clink cheers with your coffee mug or your afternoon cappuccino, remember, as the song says, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. Join us for some grown-up fun, interesting and stimulating conversations that will motivate, inspire, or just make you laugh. And for more grown-up fun, visit our website, The Three Tomatoes, and the three is spelled out, and sign up for our newsletters. Now sit back and relax and enjoy the episode. Welcome to our Happy Hour podcast. I'm Cheryl Benton, your host today, but let's be honest, not every hour can be happy. And right now, so many of us are feeling an overwhelming sadness and stress with the pandemic, and many of us are grieving for loved ones we've lost. Here to help us deal with some of these feelings is Bob Wright, who's also known as Dr. Bob, the stress relief doctor. He's a wellness coach who works with individuals and groups to help get ahead of the stress curve by addressing and resolving habitual stress, anxiety, grief, and chronic pain. So welcome, Bob. I'm so happy to have you as my guest today.
Cheryl, thank you so very much for thinking of me and have me on today. And I have to say, I love the name of your podcast. It's so upbeat and uplifting, and it is so needed, especially these days.
Oh, well, thank you. And we're all trying to be optimistic, and at the Three Tomatoes and through our podcast, we're really trying to provide people with uplifting messages and things that we can do every day as we're going through something that we've never experienced before. But I just felt it was important today to talk about the serious side and the sadness, and certainly that's here. And, as I said, we're collectively experiencing something that we've never been through before. And there's a lot of fear around everything. There's fear of the unknown, there's stress around the isolation, and there's the loss of so many things, from our everyday routines to uncertainty about jobs, the economy, and then there's the overwhelming sadness of so much loss, and for many people, the personal loss of loved ones. So we're all grieving too, but in such a different environment. And before we start talking about the grief, and I know that's an area that you specialize in, let's start with the stress, because I think we're all experiencing stress on some level. So what are you seeing right now, and what's some of your advice for coping with our lives right now?
Great question, Cheryl. First, you have to admit that that almost everyone around has experienced what I would call a catastrophic bifurcation. That simply means it's a before and after event where your life will never be the same.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the first piece that's helpful. You've got to recognize this. Your life has been shattered. Our world has been shattered. As I looked at the pictures of people with the shutdown in India, some of the people were walking 300 to 400 miles with their children because there was no transportation to get back to their village. So this has never happened before. The second thing that it's helpful to really recognize that for everyone, not just you, not just me, but we are in basically uncharted territory in our world. And a perfect business example of this is what happened last week in the oil futures market.
Mm-hmm.
Oil traded down negative. A negative went down to negative $42 a barrel, which meant that the person that is taking delivery has to. It is just mind-boggling.
I know, and they don't even know where to put all this oil right now
They don't
either, because
have
it's
any
still
choice.
pumping, and they don't know what happens if you stop pumping. I mean, that's a
Right.
great example. So
And then the other example is that we've never had a shutdown of so many things in our society simultaneously. The schools are shut down, the colleges are shut down. I remember when I first saw the announcement for Harvard University on like the middle of the week, and they said all students have to be off campus by March 15th. I remember being stunned. I mean, in hindsight now, it doesn't look like as big a deal as it was, but I could tell you at the time when that announcement came out, it was shocking. And then the students left the campus, took some of their stuff, figuring that they were going to come back after a spring break. And now they find out that maybe there may be college in the fall. Maybe, we don't know at this point. So it's the same thing with people with their jobs, especially people in service jobs. People have been furloughed, people have been laid off. Some businesses have already gone bankrupt. And Neiman Marcus filed for bankruptcy. I mean, think about what we're talking about. Neiman Marcus as a store, as a brand, they're at the pretty much at the top of the food chain as a department store, right?
right,
So
exactly.
you have Saks, Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom. I mean, and so for the entire chain to be filing for bankruptcy, they've been talking about J.C. Penney. So I haven't seen the latest news, but we're talking about a calamity. So
Hmm.
on a corporate level, on an individual level, and on a worldwide level. So Cheryl, so since what people really need are solutions, so here's an approach that can be taken. The first thing that you need to do is to take a deep breath and slow down, because the average person in their normal work life and daily life, they're rushing around, especially if you live in a city like New York, Chicago, San Francisco, etc. So with the earthquake-like change that has happened, we need to take a deep breath, we need to slow down, and then we need to telescope out so that we can get a greater perspective on what's going on and what direction we need to move in. Do we need to move? When I was a kid, there was a TV commercial. I think it said, "Don't cross the street in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the block." And they'd show a kid with a crossing guard, and that you'd have to wait and wait until the light turned green.
Right.
It almost feels like that. And so, how do we do that? So the first thing that you can do is to be thankful that we've survived and that we're okay. The dog's okay, the cat okay, not for everyone, but for many people. And then the second thing that we can do is that we can truly be a helpful support to our family and friends and colleagues. Uh, and then we can also look at how can we spend more time and truly communicate our sense of love and affection to the important people in our lives, instead of rushing around as we normally do. I've got to go here, there, and there, and that's the normal routine. And then after we do that, it's helpful to make an assessment of the damage. Okay, so you got to take a look at your finances. You need to look at your mental health. You need to look at your emotional state, your spiritual side. One of the most shocking things here, Cheryl, is that people are having a tough time not being able to go to the church, the synagogue, the mosque, to attend to their spiritual needs. And
Hmm.
this pandemic happened right in the middle of Easter, Passover, and Ramadan. So
Yeah.
this is really serious. But it was right after Carnival, so the people that
Yes.
were able to get their licks in, you know, so that was good. So and then after you make that assessment, you know, as best you can, it's helpful to figure out how to plug the holes by taking action, the actions that, you know, to that the things that you can control. So one of the things that you can control, which many people don't realize, is that you can limit the amount of bad news inputs coming to you from the
Mm-hmm.
TV, radio, and social media. So in my particular case, I saw something so awful on TV 3 weeks ago. I disconnected the cable boxes on both TVs. Now
Wow.
I watch on the television old movies, Perry Mason, Star Trek.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got it on Boston Legal, and so and I have really minimized and careful. I'm actually not doing much social media at all right now because again the news is has been so bad. Now it sounds like I've said, oh, I've been a hermit, but that's actually not true because on my computer, on an average day, I look at about 25 different news websites.
Right.
So I have narrowed my focus on what I'm looking at, but I also, when I go into news, I'm looking at positive news sites. So
Right.
so um, you know, part of lowering your stress is figuring out what to focus on, because
Mm-hmm.
you know the law of attraction shows that what we tend to focus on and pay attention to and give time and energy to tends to expand. So if you start your day with bad news, this happens, murders, robberies. You know, for example, in New York City, I've been reading that they're saying the burglary rate has skyrocketed.
Yes. Yep.
So if
Yep.
you focus on that, and then your reticular activating system is going to keep pointing that out to you. So I'm not suggesting that we put on blinders, but what I'm saying is that to lower your stress and to get a handle on your emotional state, you really have to pull some of this stuff back.
Yeah. You know, I couldn't agree more. I've you know, I'm limiting the amount of news I watch. You know, I listen to a radio show in the morning that's upbeat and they give some of the, you know, obviously what's going on. And I really limit it to, you know, a half an hour of news at night. And like you know, you see things coming in through it. And I know people or who some people who are home and they're just focused on this 24/7, which is just, you know, throws you into that abyss, I think. So I think that is really good advice. I mean, you said two great things. One was that was terrific. And the other thing is to thinking about the things that you can control, because I think so much, you know, as I said, it's the unknown, it's the fear of the unknown. And where many of us are feeling we have no control over this, and to a large degree, we don't have control over the big thing, but there are those other things that we do have control over. And I think that helps a lot. And then
Cheryl, I
another,
just want to say
yeah,
this, where to segue right into what you're talking about. Let me make it plain. Some things we just have to let go of because things are never going to be the way they were.
yeah,
So you know, this is like a Humpty Dumpty moment, or you know, a broken glass with spilled milk on the floor. So okay, the glass slipped out of your hand, the milk's on the floor, so you've got to clean up the glass and the milk. And as we know, Cheryl, whenever glass breaks, you never on the first pass get all of it. Sometimes you
yes,
find it, you know, days later. You said, "How did this get
exactly,
all the way over here?" And that is so. This
exactly.
worldwide, we have a mess.
Yes, exactly. You know, and there's another thing I want to talk to you too. When you said focus, it triggers that on the, you know, what's going on, how stress impacts our brains and thinking. First of all, I hear so many people saying I'm having trouble concentrating. I'm having trouble focusing. I thought, well, this will be a great time to read, but I'm finding I can't really get through a book. Some of us are finding ourselves getting a little easily irritated and snippy. I have to say, I've been guilty of this. And my husband and I have both worked out of our home for years. So we're used to, being here at home working, but this is so different. And have found myself being a little snippy at times with him. And then I pull back, I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? And then I know people are having anxiety, dreams, and some people may even be experiencing physical pain right now too that's related. So what does stress do to our brain? I know I've read that it actually can change your brain. And are these feelings normal right now? And is it stress related?
The answer to those questions are yes, yes, yes. So of course it's normal to have these kind of crazy reactions to what we're experiencing. Basically, this is severe trauma, pushing many people to the level of stress burnout. If you think about our first responders, and in this case, it would be nurses, doctors, EMTs, and the janitorial staff. You imagine that you're going on, the viruses, and you have to clean up. I'm thinking about people that work in the funeral homes or the morgue. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so this is trauma. So whether you want to look at it as physical trauma, mental trauma, emotional trauma, it's trauma. And so, many people are familiar with PTSD, or post-traumatic stress
Right,
disorder.
exactly.
And so, but this is at a higher level because it's not just individual. This affects the collective unconscious. And so what we're dealing with is at that this is creating a collective unconscious existential grief based on the fear of the unknown, the disruption in our daily routines, job loss, overwhelming sadness, uncertainty, and then it's the speed at which this has happened. So it is as if our past life was just torn away. It's like a scab on a wound,
Right.
just ripped off. And so Cheryl, we have multiple trauma losses, including grief and then before we came on the show, we were talking about how does a person process the grief where
Yeah,
a loved one died.
let's talk about that a little bit because we were, you and I were both sharing some, some personal comments around that because we're all feeling the sadness, but some people have they've lost ones because of the disease, or in other cases, as I was saying to you on the phone, I have 3 friends who had elderly mothers who were in assisted living homes who couldn't visit them now, and who ended up dying, not because of the virus, it was old age, but they weren't able to be there with their mothers. People who have died of COVID, their families haven't been able to be there. There's all of the sort of quote normal grieving process that helps console people haven't been there. You don't have your family and friends to console you. In some cases, there's people are still waiting to bury loved ones. So how do people deal? How do we, I guess, recover from this afterwards? And you already talked about post-traumatic stress. I have to think that these are things that are going to linger in our society for months to come, and we're going to really need a lot of emotional help, I think, to deal with a lot of these issues. So what are your thoughts quickly on this?
Okay, so Cheryl, first of all, I want to say to you and our audience, I'm feeling your pain and their pain too, because as you know, I recently lost my wife
I
to
know she's a
cancer,
beautiful woman.
and
Yep.
yes, and then I as I shared with you before the show, over the past 2 years, I have a large extended family on both sides, in-laws, and have lost at least 20 family members, not
Ah,
including friends from college. I don't know about high school because I have no one's told me so, recently. So let's cut right to the chase. So the first thing that the listeners should really understand is that it's critical to know that the experience of grieving is unique to each of us and it's individual for us. And so the way that one person grieves might be very different or opposite than the way another person grieves. One person shows emotion, the other person has a delayed reaction for 2 years, and then they wake up one morning and they're just sobbing. I had a gentleman share that with me. He was the tough guy at his mother's bedside, and then 2 years later, he woke up unconsolable, and he said to me, "What's wrong with me?" And I said, "No, there's nothing wrong with you. You're having a delayed grief reaction. It's okay." And so Cheryl, when you ask what can you do, basically, there's no easy cookie cutter answer. Okay. First of all, what we need to do is to understand what the purpose of grief is. And you touched on that in your question, which is, the purpose of grief is our body's way of acknowledging the loss of a close loved one. And during the grieving and the bereavement process, it allows the body and the mind to recalibrate our brain and nervous system. So, for example, when I was a kid, I used to watch the TV show Wild Kingdom, and anyone that's seen that TV show probably have seen like a cougar, a lion, or a jaguar go after an antelope or some other animal, and then often they would show the lion or whatever grab the animal and almost get it, and then at the last minute the animal was able to successfully get away. So if you picture that, the animal just got away, in the nick of time, and then what usually happens immediately, you see the animal shake vigorously for between 5 and 10 seconds, and then it just goes about its business. Well, that shaking off like that is the shaking off of the trauma. And so human beings need the same thing. The only difference is that we have this thing called the thinking mind brain, which we tend to overthink. There's a guy named Dr. Brad Keeney. He has a technique that he got from the Kalahari Bushmen, which is called shaking medicine, which, it looks really silly, but that's exactly what it does. If you do it, you start shaking the different parts of your body, and you can recalibrate. So here's the bottom line. When that does not happen, so as we said before the show, this is a horrible situation, Cheryl. People are dying. You can't visit the people in the hospital. Sometimes you can't even attend the funeral. Even if you do, it's remotely. Can't be at the graveside. It just almost tears your heart out of your chest. Even if it's not you, it could be a neighbor or your sister, or your brother-in-law. This is like a punch in the gut, a punch in the head, and a punch in the back, all in the same time. 1, 2, 3. That is how much it hurts. So this is beyond the normal situation. And then when you talk to other people, you're getting similar stories. And then when you turn on the TV, then you're getting hit again. So this is very, very serious. So there's no easy answer. However, what you can do is this thing of take a look, as I said, what you can control. So one of the things that people are familiar with is the old airline metaphor. Before assisting others, place your own oxygen mask on first. So what does that mean in this context? This is the context of self-care. right? So especially for women, you know, mothers, any kind of any nurturing guardian, etc. You know, I've been amazed often when I talk to some women, and they tell me about their day, their schedule. I said, oh my gosh, you, to do all of that, you have to be a Wonder Woman, Kate. And then they go, so their weekday is jam packed, and then the weekend is just. I said, well, when do you rest? When do you have time for yourself? So one of the things that this pandemic has done is given people time and space, whether they like it or not, and then whether or not you have the whether or not you have the money or not. But the issue is everything has been stopped. This is almost like the Twilight Zone where they hit the stopwatch and
Right.
everything stops. And so during the stop, then you can look at what can I do to bulletproof my mental, physical, emotional, spiritual self, so that no matter what happens during the day, that I'm like in the eye of the hurricane as all this chaos and dislocation and just craziness is going on. And so that is the thing, you know, Cheryl, that I mentioned that I'd like to share with your audience, that the gift of a mini vacation. And the reason that I use the term mini vacation is because when you consider every New Year's Eve, they do a survey of Americans, and they ask, what is your number one New Year's resolution goal that you would like to achieve? And every year in the survey, between 74 and 75%, which is basically 3/4 of the population, they say the same thing. I'd like to go to my dream destination or vacation. And so what is that? That is a vacation, right? And so
Well, yeah. Well, I know that you promised. I think we're now moving to the happy part of the podcast now. And I know that you said you would have a gift for all of us today, and I'm very excited about that. So, this is an exercise around the mini vacation.
yes.
Great. So,
So for listeners, I'm the stress relief doctor, and so my approaches are always things that are unexpectedly easy. And so it is the opposite paradigm of what your normal day, which is which is no pain, no gain. Pain, from my perspective, is a warning signal from the body to cease and desist. Now, sometimes you have to work through pain, but most of the time, if you have another option, then you know that's what I like. So the technique that I'm going to show, the way it works is the less effort, the greater the benefit. What I call low hanging fruit. Okay, so the technique, I've designed a custom open focus exercise which came out of neurofeedback and biofeedback, Cheryl.
mhm.
So essentially, what happens is that it uses the concept of space to generate a elevated relaxation response, and that results in loosening of your muscles, a dissolving of your stress, anxiety, chronic pain, etc. So it uses a scale from 0 to 10. So 0 being no pain, no stress, no anxiety, no grief, and 0 also being uh, um, um, mental clarity and sense of well-being. So it's 6 things, if you think about that, that if you say to someone, I'm just going to take care of your anxiety today with what's going on, we need a comprehensive solution, right? So
Mhm.
so how good can I help your audience out here with dealing with very quickly these elements, and you can be the test person.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, so Cheryl, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and there'll be a short pause between each question. So for example, I'll ask you, can you imagine the space inside of your mouth? And so what I want you to do is just just imagine or get a feeling sense of the space inside of your mouth. I'll ask you another question like, can you imagine the distance between the tip of your chin and the space between the toes of your feet? And so I don't want you to try to say, oh, there's 5 feet between the tip of my chin and the space on my feet. I just want you to have a sense of the distance and space. So there's no need to measure, and there's no need to respond as I give the questions. So you just allow your body to do whatever it wants. So we're going to start. So take a moment now to relax your posture. And when you're ready, please close your eyes. Can you imagine the space inside of your mouth? And as you imagine the space inside of your mouth, is it possible for you to also imagine the space inside of your throat and the distance between the space inside of your throat and the space between the toes of your left foot? Can you imagine the distance between your eyes? And as you become aware of that distance, can you imagine also feeling into the space between your eyes and inside your eyes and eye socket? Can you imagine that as you inhale naturally, your body begins to fill with space? And equally and simultaneously, is it possible for you to imagine that as you exhale naturally, your body is left filled with space, surrounded by space, permeated by space, right where you are? Can you imagine the space in which your stress, anxiety, pain, and grief occur, arise, and exist? Can you imagine directing your attention right into the heart of any stress, grief, anxiety, or pain you may have, feeling deeply into those spaces simultaneously, resting your attention there, bathing your attention there, while neither resisting nor encouraging your pain, stress, anxiety, or grief. Can you imagine your breath on the inhale flowing directly up through any remaining stress, anxiety, pain, or grief? And on the exhale, can you imagine your breath flowing back down through the center of any remaining grief, pain, anxiety, or stress? And as it does so, it dissolves your pain, it deconstructs your anxiety, it dissipates your grief, and it eliminates your stress as it flows out of your body and goes wherever it wants to go. Can you imagine now opening your focus of awareness to include any remaining pain, stress, anxiety, or grief, and simultaneously Can you imagine your feet on the floor, the space inside of the room in which you're sitting, and also imagine hearing silence, tasting silence, and feeling into the space in which silence exists. Can you imagine repeating this exercise 2 or more times per day? And as you do so, the benefits for stress relief, anxiety relief, grief recovery, and pain relief will magnify each and every time. And when you're ready, please open your eyes.
That was amazing. Seriously, I feel so much calmer right now, and your voice is so soothing. So that was truly a wonderful gift. Thank you so much. And I know that's going to help a lot of our listeners. That was very special. I really thank you so much. And thank you for being my guest today. And to learn more about Dr. Bob and his wellness coaching, visit stressfreenow.info. Correct? Anything else you want to add, Dr. Bob?
Yes, I'd like to add 2 free offers to your guests. If any of your listeners contact me and mention that they heard me on the Happy Hour podcast, I'll offer them a 30% discount off of any coaching session or coaching package. And also, if they email me, I will send them a 1-page detailed explanation of Open Focus, how it works, and how they can benefit.
So that's great. Yeah, give us your email address. Yep.
My email address is dr.bob stressrelief@yahoo.com. So that's dr.bob stressrelief@yahoo.com. And for coaching information, if you just go to stressfreenow.info website and click on coaching, I have a contact page there. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And till we meet again, hopefully in person, and hopefully that will be soon. Have a great day. Thank you.
Be safe and be well.
You too. Bye-bye.